Hey, welcome to another edition of Being the Light. Hope you're doing well and everything's going bright and shiny in your world. Um, just wanted to kind of remember last week with Satya. What a great show that was, and uh, certainly send out another thanks to him, and hope to have him back soon as well. So tonight originally was going to be my buddy Ray Oraka, who is the founder of Moksha Arts Collective down in Miami, and a big figure on the Miami art scene for, God, 30 years now. He and I've gone way back. He's done is the gallery that they had, Moksha Gallery. Did stuff every year with Art Basel, and had some of the biggest psychedelic and metaphysical artists from around the country coming in every year, including Alex Gray, who I got to meet and hang out with him and his wife, and really very cool. And uh, a real milestone in my own art career was some of my work got to hang next to Alex's in one of Ray's um, Art Basel shows, and it was just really super amazing. Anyway, Ray had some stuff come up, but I'll have him back in another few weeks, and we'll be talking about Moksha and some of the crazy people he has met over the years. And what I really want to get into as well is he's purchased a bunch of land down in Puerto Rico and is setting up an amazing retreat down there. So we'll get into that. So, in thinking about what to do instead, I kind of had a brainstorm, and I figured, let me just talk about my favorite things, which is books, 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 books. Um, not a bunch, but a few people have sent me messages asking how I got, how my journey started, and where did things really kick off. And a book played an unbelievably pivotal role in my life. Well, books, like all of my life since I was a little kid and could learn to read, man, I would be under the covers every night with a flashlight reading Hardy Boys or Alfred Hitchcock or something like that. As I got a little older, I started reading Creepy and Monster Magazine. And if it was creepy and scary, I really liked it. And then later, there was no internet, and I have been curious. Like, I lived in libraries. I loved going to antique bookstores. As a matter of fact, as a advertising person, when I would go around to different cities, the very first thing I do once I got in is get the yellow pages. Remember the yellow pages? And look up the antique and antiquarian bookstores and just go peruse. And some of the magic books I found, old stuff from 1500s, just would blow my mind. They would have that feel about them. So I had been very much into crystals. Somebody had gotten me into numerology. We're going to talk about this in a little while. And I was a dabbler, and I really wanted to be more than a dabbler, but I had no idea how to actually get into that and make that happen. And the internet, like I said, the internet was not even a pipe dream at that time. And the only place that you could really find people were at bookstores and festivals and things like that, where people would gather for those kind of things. And then it took a long time to make relationships and get into stuff. So most of my learning had been through my own grabbing stuff and voraciously reading. And I was working in an advertising agency. I was about 30 years old. And I was coming back from an appointment from a photography session. And I lived in Atlanta at the time. There was a place called the Book Nook on Cheshire Bridge Road, for any of you guys out there that are still, I wonder if that's still there. And they were like just fantastic with all these art books and a bunch of used books and like big posters. Back then there were all these kind of like limited edition prints from some of the comic artists, Frazetta and Steranko and all of those guys. And it was just a place I loved to go and depressurize and go dive into some fantasy stuff. So some of the stuff that I read when I was a kid, was the H.P. Lovecraft stuff. He wrote a whole series of things, famous horror writer, Dunwich Horror and a bunch of other things. And one of the things he came up with was a mythical grimoire, magic book called the Necronomicon. And this whole mythology grew up out of the Necronomicon. And I always thought that it was kind of just a fabrication of Lovecraft's. And one afternoon, I'm driving back to the office down Cheshire Bridge Road, and my car goes, and I turn over into the Book Nook parking lot, jump out, and go running around, looking around in the store. And I'm perusing and like cool stuff, and I look up, and this like, bing! And it is a black leather book with a silver foiled spine, Necronomicon. I was like, ooh, oh my God. So my heart's starting to race, and I like pulled this book off and I start looking through it, and it's a crazy book. It's like spells and all kinds of other things. And there are penciled notes in the margin where somebody has actually used it. And my friend Michael Zinn and I like had this conversation a couple times on whether a book is actually alive. And I always hold the premise that what's in the book is alive when the energy of the person connects to it and activates it. But in this particular instant, that book was alive, man. And when I took it off and I'm like looking through it and I'm breathless, I'm like, oh my God, I've got to have this. I've got to have this. I can't even explain it to you. It's like, it really makes no sense. It was just a book, but like it blew something up inside of me. So I went to go ask how much it was, and it was like $150, and which I didn't have on me at the time. And I went, okay, well, I'll come back and get it. And I hated leaving it, but there really wasn't any other choice at the time. And I was leaving the next day to go on a commercial. I was doing a commercial campaign for Days Inn. And I was going to be gone for like 2.5 weeks. Every single day we were traveling around the country. And man, the whole time I was gone, I was like, man, I can't believe I left that book. What a missed opportunity. And I was just like stewing. So finally, I even like tried to bump my flight up so I could get back earlier. And the first thing I do was drive straight to the Book Nook. And I'm looking everywhere, and my heart's just sinking because it's like not there. And I go up to the guy at the cash register and I say, hey, listen, what is that Necronomicon book still around? He gives me this like weird look, kind of nerdy, creepy guy, right? And he gets a little pale and he goes, wow, man, like 10 minutes ago, somebody came in and bought that. I'm like, no, you've got to be kidding. So about a month goes by, and I tool in again, just on my regular stop by at lunch. I look up on the shelf, and in exactly the same place, there's the Necronomicon. I'm like, oh my God. So I grabbed it. I didn't even look at it. I just grabbed it. I went to the cashier, And I go to pay for it, and it happened to be the same guy. And he looks at it and he goes, "Wow, that's really weird, man. Somebody just brought this back 15 minutes ago." I'm like, so it was just like I felt like I was looking at something that was, it was kind of scary and spooky. And back then, when I was young, man, if it was scary, the scarier it was, the more I wanted to scope it out and check it out. So I went home and I pored over it, and it was this crazy story about this guy, this guy called the Mad Arab Abdul Hazred, and he goes through this whole thing into it was really very, very dark, and like a lot of the Cthulhu stuff that you see that like happens in tons and tons of horror movies all comes from that stuff, and those weird tentacly strangeness things that live on the outside and are waiting to get in, the old gods. Yeah. So I had never done any kind of ritual stuff before, and some of them were kind of calling my name, but I was honestly too scared to do it, and I had no ability. I didn't know how to do anything right, and thank God, some part of me was going, dude, get some skills, figure out how to make this not suck, because the worst thing could happen is not nothing. The worst thing could happen is something really super bad. So I think really more than the book itself, there was a bibliography in that book, and it listed all of the books, like the information was, influences were used. And there was Crowley stuff and Budge's book on making amulets and talismans, and a bunch of Golden Dawn stuff, and Barrett's The Magus, and it was just the list of like the top 10 books to start to explain magic. So I went on a quest. My first move was to go like get every one of those that I possibly could find, and I had some really pretty good success. And I started digging in, although all of the terminology was just so foreign to me. I didn't element schmelement. I like, what is that? I have no idea what that is, and the whole ritualistic aspect of it. I mean, I grew up Catholic, and Catholics make really good ritual magicians, but that was the closest I had come to any ritual, and had certainly never conducted one of my own. So I really went into a deep dive on that, and when things were starting to expand, got my first tarot deck, and I'm just digging in right and left and hoping to find somebody to talk to about this. Like everyone I kind of like broached out, like I asked my boss at the time, Joey Ryman, if he knew anything about the Kabbalah, and he kind of looked at me like I was all crazy. And I mean, this was pre-Madonna, and like all of that, where it got normalized. It was still like, what are you talking about, magic? Like, are you nuts? Yeah. Um, so at the same time I'm digging into that, um, this same Joey Ryman has this woman come up and meet with the creative department of the agency, probably 25 people. We're all in the big conference room, and I'm sitting there, and I was really busy, man. We like worked insane hours and crazy, crazy deadlines, and it was really hard. So I didn't like giving my time away to bullshit. And this woman comes in, and he introduces her as a reverend. And I start to get up, man, because the last thing I want is some religious dogma in the middle of my trying to create this campaign. And it turns out that it's not about that at all. And her whole gig is about finding your own internal energy, and the things that are possible that you think are impossible right now. And I got mesmerized. And at the end of that, right before she was going to take off, from about 4 or 5 feet away, she made a metal ashtray come slide across the table right to her. And right then, that was kind of like a life-changing moment, because even though I hadn't done it myself, there was no way that that was a trick. I knew what was under the table. There were no magnets. There was no string. There was nothing. I was sitting right there, and it woke something up in me that said, "Yeah, see, I told you, I told you, I told you you could do it." So that kind of became a quest then, like to go find some teacher that can help me with that. And then just days later, I happened into a really cool bookstore that I had not ventured into. Um, and I met this old, like the guy was like the quintessential Hollywood casting character of an old wizard guy, you know, kind of old with a little gray hair and the glasses. And I see this book in the case, right? And this is a big book. A big thick book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. I mean, who could resist that, right? Especially when I'm trying to figure out the secret teachings of all ages. So what's really great about this particular book is that it is written by a guy named Manly P. Hall, who was kind of like the ultimate librarian of Western magical secrets, Western occult traditions. And there's Rosicrucian stuff, there's Hermetic stuff, there's Thelemic stuff, there's Golden Dawn stuff, like pretty much across the board. There's all these different things in here. Yeah. The philosophy of Pythagoras, right? These amazing illustrations, right? As a book itself, just as a book maker's art piece, this book is absolutely freaking unbelievable. Let me show you a few more pages. Yeah, right. And I just happened to turn to, you know, I never can get the angle right, but this is the place that I discovered the angelic system of the Shem HaMephorash, which is what my angel deck is based on and what my show on Monday nights is, the Angel Channel. It's the Shem HaMephorash, the 72 angels of the names of God. So really super critical piece here. And what's great is that it just goes on and on and on. And it doesn't go into super depth, but it gives you a taste. Like, man, it's like getting to sit at the dinner table, at one of those Chinese dinner tables where they just keep putting dishes on them, twirling it around. You get to sample everything. So I would strongly suggest anyone that was interested in kind of learning about the traditional stuff. I think people are getting less and less interested in this, but myself, I just can't even begin to tell you. It's an encyclopedic outline of Masonic, Hermetic, Kabbalistic, and Rosicrucian philosophy by Manly P. Hall. And you know, I think there are editions like this big bad boy out there that are for sale, but they're pretty hard to find. But it's readily available on Amazon for not a lot of money, and I think super well worth the book, well worth the price. And on okay, this is a little known tidbit and my own personal information, because the guy that I got this book from is the guy that turned me on to a group of Rosicrucians that kind of like tuned me into a really cool fact that not many people know. And that is, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of the Georgia Guidestones. They just blew them up 2 or 3 years ago, but it was kind of like a Stonehenge, but it was like with 4 different columns, and it was all set up with the angle of the sun to like do the solstices and the equinoxes. And I think that there were like 10 different languages of there was this manifesto of what should happen on the earth, like to keep the population to 500 million, and this whole list of stuff. And people latched onto that, like they were saying that they should be annihilating people and they were going to be killing people, and that they were trying to euthanize everybody in the world so that we can get it down to 500 million just uber elite people that own the world now. But that was so not the case. You know, the Rosicrucians are a society of magicians and people that have been concerned with making the world a better place. It's the Rosy Cross, and started by a guy named Rosencrantz. And throughout their time, like Helen Blavatsky and Dion Fortune and all those guys, they've been really concerned with like far seeing and seeing into the future. And a lot of the stuff they predicted was world calamities, you know, like, and they did in fact predict World War I and World War II as well, and they had like significant information to go give the British and the Allies, and try to warn people up front about what was going on, and no one would listen. And they were just crazy witch people, and did not get any credibility. But and they've predicted other disasters. I don't know why they're particularly clued in to figuring out when things are going to end and explode and blow up and war's going to start, but they're really good at that. So this whole like Georgia Guidestone thing was not about like killing people and setting up a new world. It was a prediction that the world is going to end. Like there's going to be an earth-shattering cataclysmic event that's going to wipe out just about everybody, and that the people that'll be left will probably be less than 500 million, and that as man starts to come back from that and to recoup that, you know, to be wise about the planet this time and not do all this crazy stuff that wound up running us into the ground. And so they went and blew somebody that was very agitated, went and just dynamited the Georgia Guidestones and cut them out of there. So anyway, that was a divergent story, but little known fact, cool bit of truth. And now you can tell somebody why they actually were blown up. They were financed by guys that were in that too. So, all right, we're going to get into meat and potatoes. Oh, let me finish where we're going. So for about 10, 15 years, I stayed in Western magic tradition stuff, got well-versed, met some people that taught me some stuff, and I loved it. It makes my soul happy and sing every time. When I'm lighting up my light, I am at the happiest I am ever. And then I got deeply into an African strain of magic called Ifa, I-F-A. And it's kind of the root African version from Nigeria that of magic that a lot of the other stuff like Santeria and Palo Mayombe and Voodoo and Candomblé and the things that wound up here in the New World with people that didn't have complete knowledge, like different versions of that grew into their own things over the years and became their own things. And that whole natural nature magic, amazing. Understanding plants and how to use natural stuff can keep you off of pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals, no good. You know, most of everything that they've developed has come from a root plant that they like tried to then synthesize. But the reality of it, you know, it's being the light. This is an energy show. And the truth of the matter is that plants are alive. They've got an energy. Even when they're picked, they still have the essence of that. And when you use those medicinal things with that, that's a critical compound to that. And when you try to just take it down to a chemical formula and reproduce it, it doesn't do the same things, and it doesn't work, and the body doesn't accept it the same way. So for about the past 20 years, I have rarely ever, like, if I can avoid any kind of pharmaceuticals, even Advil, stuff like that, there are other plant and natural scenarios around that would take care of that. And I've got a perfect example because I got this weird little crusty stuff right around where my ponytail is. It's kind of half a ponytail now. And I was getting a little piece of skin cancer or a little carcinoma thing burned off at the dermatologist, and I happened to mention that. She gives me some stuff. I went, what could it hurt? So I put it on there, and like stuff started blooming, and all of a sudden I'm getting stuff on my face. I go back and like, what the hell's going on? Oh, it's this, and this. Here, use this. Here, take these antibiotics. Okay. And against my better judgment, I went ahead and did it. Well, my face blew up. My whole face was covered in this weird little scaly bumps. I felt like a reptile, man. It was really freaking awful. So I broke down. I called my teacher. I said, listen, here's what's going on. He goes, man, what are you doing? I should smack you. I said, oh, no, I'll smack me for you. So he sends me out to get black organic Jamaican castor oil. And I put that stuff, and I had tried with the antibiotics, and it was making other stuff happen. And the steroids they gave me back here is the stuff that made my face explode. And now they're telling me I have like rosacea, and I'll never get rid of it. And man, it was like, what in the world? So I went and I got the black castor oil, zoomed it on my face, 4 days, completely gone, all good. I mean, as good as I'm gonna get, but it could have been way worse. So, you know, I'm big about finding a natural alternative where at all possible, and also doing stuff for prevention and treating your machine like a machine and giving it the fuel and energy it needs to run right. It'll do miraculous things, man. Your immune system is beyond words. It's crazy, over the top, amazing. And the things that your body can do if you give it, you know, the nutrients you need to actually make it run, it'll shock you and amaze you, I think. Yeah. All right. So okay, I just got the finish your story. So I was initiated as a Babalao, and I spent 4.5 years with an African family, and became an African witch doctor, and man, had some experiences that would just like you would not believe, and while I really enjoyed that, and I carry that with me and part of my fabric now, it ultimately wasn't the place I needed to go. I needed to find a teacher that could teach me telekinetics. That was until that happened, I would not feel happy. Long story short, chase down, actually find somebody that I hear and get verified information that is really good at this. It takes me 6 years to get to him, to actually have a conversation and start to get to know him. I'm at this time, I'm like 50 years old. I'm too old to be starting that practice, man. You know, they like to work with young people because your body gets taxed, and you don't have an old dog's old habits and routines to break, you know. So anyway, I wound up in a really kind of dark place, and I had gained a ton of weight. I was killing myself. I was drinking and eating myself to death. I blew up to like 400 pounds. Diabetes too, like all my systems are shutting down. I can't think, and I go to the doctor, and they rush me to the emergency room. And the guy in the emergency room says, "Listen, if we waited another couple days, we'd be having a funeral for you instead of getting you better." So while I was out in the parking lot, I get a call out of the blue, and it turns out to be Og, my teacher. And he's like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, I lay the whole situation out to him, and he's like, "Why didn't you call me, man? Come on, come on, come on." So long story short, he makes a deal with me. He says, "Listen, you get your health together. I'll help you. I'll help you get your energy back on the road. You go out and do your part to lose 100 pounds, and I'll teach you your first effect." And at 11 months, I'd lost 150 pounds. Taught me my first telekinetic effect, which I did on the Angel Show last week. It's this rod spinning thing, and never looked back from that. And it's been a crazy and amazing ride, and books have been part of that all along the way. Right? Okay, long-winded story, I know. Jacob, are you bored? Okay. So the whole crux of tonight is like, if you were going to go to a desert island, what 2, 3, 4 books would you take that would be the only books you'd have for the rest of your life? None of these are super well known things, but they are all like gems. This book, yeah, The Touch of Healing by Alice Burmeister. I'm trying to. I got in touch with the Jinsen Jitsu Society, and I actually think next month we're going to have a representative from these guys on to talk to us about the system. Everything, like I told you how long I've been studying, and every piece of every step along the way required practice and effort, concentration, and lots of energy. Like nothing comes for free. And I don't know about you, but the streetwise person in me gets suspect of something, when somebody's trying to give me something for nothing. Like, okay, where's the catch? So my teacher turned me on to this and says, "Man, you should really get into this and start using it. It is really amazing." And he pointed out this particular section in here called the depths. And it's all these different hand positions. And those are all the things that this particular hand position affects. The emotion of anger, it brings down blood essence, it addresses liver and gallbladder, and this is about balancing the flows of energy around you. And by holding your finger, you're working on this. Well, on anger, you're holding your middle finger, but you're sitting here creating the circuit that's going around and around. And where the blips are in that, where things that, like on anger, for instance, where somebody pissed you off, well, that creates a little weirdness in your flow, and it's not going. And every time it gets by that, it like reacts to that. And you build up enough of those, and you're just in this constant state of anxiety, or in this case, anger, and you're just circle thinking and obsessive thinking and like spewing out negativity and wanting revenge. So each of the fingers has a specific emotion tied to it. And the thumb is worry. And all you have to do on this is take your dominant hand. If you're right-handed, that'd be your right hand, and just wrap it around your thumb and just hold it. So Augie told me about this, and I'm like, "You're kidding me, right?" I thought he was setting me up, because like, how could anything that easy actually work? So I blew him off. Finally stopped talking about it. I still didn't get the book. A couple years goes by. I'm in the middle of this situation, and Augie's teacher sends a message to me through him and says, you should get that Jensen Jitsu book and get on it. I'm like, okay. Yeah, Augie was enough, and I'm a bonehead for not picking it up sooner. But when his teacher mentioned that out of the blue, it was like, okay, what am I going to sit around and not get it? So I got the book, and it is just an amazing thing. My early learning through all those years with Dilemma, Golden Dawn, all this stuff, in a way, they're kind of like their own religious organizations. They've got all this dogma and rules, and this is exactly the way it has to be, and everybody has to kind of fit into those molds, and it's a pretty tight little constraint of where you're allowed to go. And like with the African stuff, I had to stop practicing everything else and just focus on that. And a couple of the other things were like that as well. And I just wasn't about that at all. And when I met Og and we started learning, it says, well, one of the main goals and objectives of this is to create your own cosmology and to like take the things that are for you. Every one of us has their own perfect singular path, their own little thread, and the wider path of all of us moving towards evolution. And understanding that you don't have to know every single thing about every single thing, and that there'll be bright things out of that, like my understanding of plants and how to use those and create powders and potions and that help people out of my African stuff was just amazing. And having my connection to nature and those spirits, those raw spirits of nature, amazing, changes you. And I carry all of those things with me and every day. And the rituals and you learn those things and then absorb them and change them and evolve them. And one of the methods and things that Og and I really enjoy, and I like this with my students as well, is that you show somebody something, like the rod spinning thing, or how to see auras, and start taking apart the bands and understanding that. And it's really cool when somebody actually latches on to those and puts in the effort to make those a reality and to succeed at it. But it is really so gratifying when somebody takes like the rod spinning thing. It seems like a pointless, silly trick that, what you're actually doing is building up your muscles for a lot of other things. And the nature of energy in the energy world, everything is spinning. And being able to control that and work with that, super crucial. So when they take that and all of a sudden they're coming back over and hey, look, man, I figured out how to use the rod thing to tell yes or no. Yeah, man, I did a little kind of round Ouija board sort of setup, and man, I've been using that to like get messages and contact people. Yeah, I've been able to like point directions on where I need to go. Like there's 100 things that you can use that rod spinning thing for. And when somebody comes back and takes what you learned, absorbs it, or we're teaching, learns it and absorbs it, and then adds on top of that and makes their own creative creation out of that, makes their own thing out of that that's personal to them, out of their own energy. That's always the most gratifying thing. I love that very, very much. So the gig with this is that there was this guy in Japan. He was the youngest son of a family of brothers that were all doctors. The father and uncles were all doctors. The grandfather was a doctor. He was a partier, a drunk, and a womanizer, and was the black sheep of the family and pretty much an outcast. And he didn't care. And he just drank and drank and drank and drank and drank and drank. Finally, he was on the edge of death, and he decided that he was going to go off into the forest to die. And while he was in the forest, he went into deep meditation, and boom, the system starts to reveal itself to you. It's called Jin Shin Jitsu. And it's a whole way, just like acupuncture. Here we go. Just like acupuncture and a lot of the healing things that are working with the networks, the neural networks in the body. You know, this particular thing, like every single point on this, just by doing pressure points and holding those, you can fix so many things. I've fixed more stuff on my old ancient broken body than I can even begin to tell you, and it's now become part of my everyday life. And as a matter of fact, the sitting and using this for my daily practice, you know, doing worry, fear, anger, grief, and then when you put your thumb in the middle and wrap your fingers around your hand, you're balancing all of your emotions. And the great thing about this, man, it's like you don't have to concentrate on it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to pour energy into it. All you have to do is sit there and hold your finger. I know it's like the only thing I know in this whole process for me that's something for just about next to nothing. Okay, it does take a shred of effort to go, oh, I need to hold my finger, and to actually hold your finger. But that's it. And, you know, it's such a go-to thing for me now. And it keeps me, I try to stay close to center now. I don't like going out, you know, it's okay to go out to the edges if you need it. But I want to come back right here. I want to stay right in this nice little zone right here. And that's an amazing way to get there. And I had a physical not long ago, and everybody's like, wow, dude, not bad. So far, so good. So can't even begin to recommend enough The Touch of Healing by Alice Burmeister. It's a cheapie on Amazon too. Okay, let's see. How much time do we have? All right. I won't go into this at length. Numerology. Like, what the hell is up about numerology? You know, it's numbers. But if you think about it, numbers never lie. 2 and 2 is always 4. 1 and 1 is always 2. You know, those things are constants and don't really change. They have nothing to do with society or concepts. Numbers are numbers, and numbers define energetic frequencies. And that's what this is all about. And it's about being able to take apart words and, you know, places, anything that has letters in it, and assign the numerological equivalent to those letters, add that up, that gives you a number, and that defines the frequency of whatever you're asking about. My mistake when I was young, this is the first thing I got, like of a metaphysical kind, with any kind of a divination or anything like that. And yeah, so the numbers define frequencies. And each of those, like when you do that add up, you usually say you get 43. Well, you want to get down to like a base number, you know, in the first 9 numbers. So you would take that, you'd first of all, you write the 4 and 3 over the top of 7. So it looks like a fraction. And then by taking the 4 and 3, that's how you get that 7. And the bottom 7 is kind of like on a telescope or a microscope. You've got 2 focuses. One is the kind of the wide general area focus, and then the other one's the super fine focus and crisp sharpness. And that's how those work. And my mistake when I first started using those was trying to use it as like telling the future during fortune telling. And the mistake in that is that numbers define frequencies and flows, and those things are always changing. They're not ever written in stone. And defining, say you want to take the numbers of the day and add those up, and they come up to a 16, and you go and you look that up. That is, you asked about today, this one day. So that is the potential energy that's around then. And there are certain things that can happen within the context of that energy, that energy lends itself to do. That's not necessarily predicting that, like, the guy next to you is going to go over and stop the bus and take everybody hostage, or you're going to get the lottery or anything. It's only saying this is the soup of possibility and potential, and the numbers. Yeah, and then how that actually materializes is a number all of its own and its own special frequency. So everything across the board, I mean, in a way, it kind of looks like the Matrix. There are numbers going all the time, and like there are numbers defining frequencies, and when you observe the energy world, man, we are in an ocean, and then in an ocean full of flows and currents and eddies and gigantic waves. And being able to kind of define what those energetic things are have become a real benchmark for me. Not to mention that you can make music with numbers. For instance, the opening to the show, the kind of melodic part of that is the name of the show, Be in the Light. In numbers, I took Be in the Light, made numbers, and those numbers have musical note equivalent. And I just put that together. And that is what came out. I didn't really like sculpt that. I didn't really rearrange it. It came out pretty much just exactly the way it happened, which is a miracle and a little piece of magic in and all of itself. So there are a million numerology books out there, but a lot of them have plagiarized this one. This is kind of an older book. This is Numerology and the Divine Triangle by Faith Javine and Dusty Bunker. What's really great about this is it has many ways to look at the numbers, but in addition to that, it also has astrological correspondences and the tarot symbolism as well, so that you can start thinking about that as a whole system and not just random pieces. And I notice, I can't tell you how many of these the things that come out on the internet now are just like little random plagiarizers of this, and go back to the roots and get the actual book. All right. Oh yeah, forgot to mention this. I don't have this book because I just gave this book away. And over the past 30 years, I've probably given this book away maybe 100 times. It's by an author named Carlos Castaneda, and the name of the book is The Fire Within. And Carlos Castaneda was the apprentice of a Yaqui Indian sorcerer, and it's a whole series of books detailing his apprenticeship as he goes. He's a college anthropologist getting his PhD, and he goes to Mexico to hook up with a Yaqui Indian shaman that can tell him about the use of psychotropic plants within the Indians tribe. Excuse me. So he goes, meets up with him, and he has this whole thing. And he starts to learn the whole world of energy and magic. This last book, The Fire Within, has a chapter in it called The Petty Tyrant. And to anybody that is undergoing a stressful situation, their boss at work, a bad relationship, anything, a bully at school, this book gives the perfect description on how to deal with that situation and to turn that scenario down of feeling like a victim and viewing that as a challenge and a petty tyrant that is yours to figure out how to strategize to overcome. And overcoming that makes you into your spiritual warrior self. It's amazing. I've like saved a couple people's lives. I knew at least two people that were seriously close to ending themselves, and I don't know why this book, that chapter, man, it brought them back. So anyway, The Fire Within, Carlos Castaneda. All right, we just about have time for this one. Okay. All of those books are really super cool. I love them all. And I had a library of about 3,000 books that I built up over the years. And when I moved and downsized, I got rid of most of those. And as you can see in the back, I've got a shelf of books. Those ones in the middle right there, or at the left side of the cabinet, are all my own books I've made, and those the books that are down below that are all my journals over the years, and maybe I'll bust a few of those out over the course of it. They're kind of interesting. It's the journal that I was keeping when I did my first effect, and I actually spun the rod, and I realized inside to my core that my definition of what was impossible just got obliterated. Like, man, it opened up the universe to me, and going back and looking and pulling out that journal and looking at that page and reading that, that's alive still for me too. I don't know that anyone else would feel that, but I can go back to that moment. It was just one of the most exhilarating moments of my life. Okay. So if I could only take one book, it would be this. I have been a student and I hate to say devotee, follower, but a magical person named Franz Barden. Super influential on teaching me about magnetic fluids, male female energy, tarot cards, making fluid condensers, pretty much moving energy around, and ethics on the way to live life. Yeah, a real super intense influence. One of my go-to emulate figures. And this guy named Ron Clark was a student of Bardon's, and he wrote this book that kind of Bardon's stuff was kind of terse and difficult to read. And when he wrote it, a lot of the language was a little archaic. So Ron Clark went in and rewrote that, and it's the companion to that. It kind of goes through this chapter and explains it in the most amazing way. I would get stuff like that I'd sit there and ponder in Bardon's book for hours, and I'd read it and that makes perfect sense. And step by step, if you go through this book, starting with the meditation practices that we'll talk about in a second, and it goes through getting your elemental abilities together, the black mirror and the white mirror. I mean, my God, anyone that hasn't done that exercise is missing out. And then being able to get into some really complex things, like taking your consciousness and moving it places, and going inside and looking at animals for an animal and seeing what that vision, a lot of really intense things. The infinite center point and every single thing that is the doorway to the center of the universe, and then anywhere else you want to go. Yeah, really, really great. The thing that's good about this, not only is it written in a way that you can really understand it and grasp it really well, but in each of these, he gives massively good lessons at the end. He lays out problems and lessons for you to do astrally, mentally, and physically. And with each chapter, you've got all this homework to do on it. And as the chapters progress, you really do go along. And one of the things about this is that every chapter is built on the other chapter. So it's kind of pointless to look at this book as something you're going to just sit down and read in a couple of weeks and be done with. It's kind of like a way of life sort of map to lay out, and some really great challenges that stretch you, stretch your energy, stretch your perception, stretch your understanding of yourself and the world around you. It's really very amazing. Okay, so the way that everything gets rolling with this book, and this is worth the price of the book, even if you don't read anything else. And that's the meditation section in this, right? And he's got like a number of different methodologies for meditation. The first one being just sit in a quiet space and watch yourself think, which when I first sat down to do it sounded like super easy. And I'm like, wow, that'd be really easy. But the second I sat down to watch myself think, I was watching myself think and not thinking. And so that was a cool little thing to get involved in. Then the next one is selecting, and while you're thinking and you're watching yourself thinking, select and single out a particular thought, and to the exclusion of everything else, stay focused on that thought and follow that thought wherever it goes. Just that one. No branches, no going off on tangents, just that one thought. Challenging, but not bad. And then the last one is to actually turn off your mind and go to blank space, so that you're there, you're aware, but you have no thinking going on. And it's from that space that miracles happen. It's an amazing place. And when we do the guided meditations, if you're interested in any of this, come and join us on Monday night on the Angel Channel. And we're doing live energy practices, guided meditations, magic. We did the energy thing with the rod, and we're using that as kind of a practice thing. So come and see us on Monday night and come share with us. So blank space, that's the place where miracles happen. That's the space that everybody tries to get, and it's difficult. But the cool thing about this book as well is it gives you little keys that help you get in there. And the key for this one is to focus on the spaces in between the words. Like when you're thinking and you're thinking about a sentence, try to grab on to those empty spaces in between the words. And it'll be difficult at first, but then you get them and you start to get them, and then you can lengthen them out. And before you know it, yeah. Once you go, you don't want to go back. You don't want to come back. So if you master those three meditation techniques, your physiology will change, your mental focus will change, your ability to perceive your perspective in life will change, and across the board, your evolution will be growing and your light will be brighter in every way, shape, or form. So, it looks like we've kind of run to the end. If anyone's out there, subscribe, please. Like and subscribe, please. Yes. And show up for us on the Angel Channel on Monday night, 9:00, YouTube. And I hope you enjoyed some of the books, and I hope you get some of the books. And if you have any questions, want to get into it, want to start your own journey down the path, please contact me. And next week on Be in the Light, we are going to have my friends Patty and Prata. We're going to do a Tibetan bowl meditation that I think you'll find really super cool. And until then, burn bright, baby. Be in the light.